Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. That is Ari. I'm Korea, obviously. A little bit of a different setup, obviously. For those who still do not know, I'm still recovering from my ACL surgery that was it's going to be about 3 weeks ago, coming Thursday now. It's crazy, but, I'm actually, 2 weeks Thursday.
2 weeks.
So I'm hanging in there. But, it is right around the corner. Obviously, Ari, our favorite time of the year, 6 days away. We will have our first March Madness bracket, probably our last real one, obviously, with all these pending changes, with all these conference teams shifting and all whatnot. But that's another time. That's another discussion for another time. Obviously, we are just getting ready for obviously, the big reveal of the field of 64/68 for some, and then obviously, getting ready and closer to the beginning of the MLB season. We're about a week away from the infamous game in Seoul, South Korea, between the Dodgers and the Padres. Like we said, we've been talking about this the past week, but this coming Wednesday in about a couple of days, we are going to be having our full MLB season show. It's going to be all MLB season in terms of players props for the full season, win totals, potentially World Series, division winners, all that fun jazz. We're going to have all that stuff on Wednesday, so tune into that episode on. But right now, we're just going to do a recap of how we did this past weekend. And you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it. I mean, the I the fantasies kind of sold the parlay already. Was not what I was having envisioned. The thing about Tennessee is they rely so heavily on Dalton Connect, and it shows. I mean, he is their offense. I mean, he puts up 30, 40 points a game on average for that Tennessee offense. And, he even with, in kind of what was surprisingly a more defensive game, which was, credit to Kentucky, who have been playing like one of the best teams right now. And it's kind of crazy that, we talk about how all these teams are playing good. And then, as we get into March, Duke, UNC and Kentucky are the three hottest teams right now heading into March, and it's so funny that it's the Blue Bloods. But obviously Tennessee thought that they were going to get the win at home, but their offense just outside of Dalton Connect seems to be so suspect, and that's the thing that was the killer with Tennessee. Obviously, Houston was never even a sweat. They controlled that game from the opening tip. They got out to a 25-point lead, and they never looked back. So that was nice to see Houston get the dominant win at home. And then Virginia, they took care of business, but just unfortunate to see Tennessee already ruin the parlay before we could even get to Virginia. So that was a tough loss there. And then I even told you what did I tell you about South Carolina? What did I tell you about South Carolina? I said South Carolina is going to win that game. And like I said, they did. South Carolina has been disrespected by the books all season. This team is really, really good defensively. They slow you down, and that's what Lamont Paris and that South Carolina Gamecock squad has been doing. So that was a nice win for the Gamecocks as well, to get, and especially for covering the +5 Drake money line. Obviously, that was a little bit of a sweaty game against Bradley. Obviously, came down to the wire, but clutch few throws from Mr. Larry Bird 2.0. I like to call him Tucker DeVries. Clutch three throws from really kind of took this game to for Drake. Send him on to the championship game, and what a championship game that was yesterday. If you did get to watch it, obviously Drake won that game as well in regulation. So congratulations to the Drake Bulldogs officially going to the back to the going back to the big dance once again. But that was a great winner there. And then unfortunately, the Gardner Webb. I feel like we're getting the good looks with these non-conference with these neutral court turning on with these conference tournament unders. We're getting the good looks, but we're just not hitting them. I mean, Gardner Webb, UNC Asheville, that was a great look. That game was soaring under, and then it went into overtime, and it went over by so much. So I think it went into double overtime as well. So it kind of just shows like it was the right read, but when a game goes to overtime and you have it under, unless it is the lowest scoring game of all time, you're cooked. So that was a tough read. That was a tough one for me. So I'll take a 2-2 weekend in full. I mean, Tennessee sold, and the like I said, the the game went into double overtime. I can't control that. So I'll take a 2-2 weekend. Ari, how did you do this weekend? Ari, I think you're muted.
Yeah. I had a nice 2-0 Saturday. The Crane game was really kind of a game of runs. Creighton dominated the first half. It looked like they're going to run away with the game. Villanova kind of settles down in the second half and storms back. But then Trey Alexander came through in the final seconds to win it for Creighton by 2 points. So that was a lot more sweaty than anticipated after the first half, but they still pulled through. And then the ASU UCLA game soared under. I think it was 59-47, so 106 points, I believe. Um, Both teams in the second half had long stretches of not scoring. I know it was like 8 minute mark, 2 minute mark left in the second half, and ASU scored like 1 point. It was like an 18-1 run for UCLA in that time after ASU went up like 42-33. I think it was up 9 points, like almost halfway through the second half, and then they scored 1 point in like 8 minutes. Um, they had the weird situation with Jose Perez leaving the team right before that game, like right before the Pac-12 tournament too. That was a strange situation. He was like there's their second leading scorer, I believe, heading into that game. So yeah, there wasn't much sweat with this game at all, first half or second half. So Creighton took it in the sweater game than I thought it would be, and then ASU UCLA built offense to stunk like I expected.
You see, that's the thing with Villanova, right? They fake you into believing that this team is actually going to win the game, and then they eventually lose in some heartbreaking fashion. And everyone says, "Oh, Villanova was so close; they should be a tournament team." No, they're not. They should not be a tournament team. Those bozos should be going straight to the NIT. And then obviously, great win for Creighton. Obviously, you mentioned they got a really big first half, pretty dominant. They were hitting everything, and then here come Villanova, and they made that fake comeback for no reason. They eventually obviously did lose the game. And then you mentioned the whole ASU situation with Jose Perez, and just we talked about how both of these offenses really struggle, and then obviously these two teams kind of rely more heavily on their defensive prowess. So obviously that under was really the great call there. Under 133, that's soared under. Obviously you mentioned the 59-47 final score, only finishing under 110. So obviously very low scoring game. That's a good 2-0 weekend for you. 2-2 weekend for me, finishing 4-2. We like that. Obviously finishing over 500 for the total for both of us this past weekend. But obviously we're gonna continue our countdown to March. Obviously we are 6 days away from our selection Sunday. We are about a little over a week away from the beginning of March Madness. And here are my two picks today. We got some semifinal. Now it's just conference tournament action now. So, but unfortunately, today's a little bit of a lighter day. There's not too much going on, but we do have some conference tournament games. So first, we're gonna go to the semifinals in the Horizon League, and I'm taking this under here between Cleveland State and Oakland. This system better hit tonight. If this doesn't hit, I'm gonna abandon it for a little while because I feel like I don't even have to say why I'm taking it again. It's the same system again. And we don't have to worry about any, is it because the Horizon, they were all at their, campus sites, but now I think they're in Indy. They're all in Indy. So this is obviously a neutral court. Totals going down. If this has to be the right read. This has to be the day. I feel like this is the day where the neutral court tourney system finally hits for us. So I'm taking this for the conference tournament system. Cleveland State, Oakland under 144.5. And then I'm just sprinkling. I don't really like too much today. JMU and Samford, I do like in terms of their finals because obviously we do have a couple championship games today. But the lines were so juiced in terms of their money lines, it's not even worth it. So I'm going to throw a little bit of value on something I saw. So I'm taking St. Thomas here, and I saw them at plus. I saw them around almost even money when they opened up, maybe around plus 102 or maybe plus 105. They grew all the way to plus 130. I don't know why they grew, which is kind of concerning for me. Maybe it's just a lot of people backing South Dakota State, but I don't think South Dakota State is winning this game. We've seen a lot of number one seeds fall, especially yesterday. We saw Eastern Washington fall. I believe High Point has fallen throughout this conference tournament time. We saw App State fall yesterday. There have been a lot of number one seeds who have been on thin edge, especially in this mid-major conference tournament run because they used to be a guaranteed NIT spot. Now there isn't, and so there's a lot more pressure there. And I think the better defense is going to win this game, and that is St. Thomas. And I'm not throwing too much value on it just because I think it's the Summit League, and I have not delved into any Summit League action at all because it's been one of the worst conferences, and that's why I'm taking this St. Thomas team. This is, I believe, their first year of eligibility, if I'm not mistaken, after making the transition and all that waiting time to become a D1 team and finally be eligible for the NCAA tournament and along with the Summit League tournament. I'm just throwing a little bit of value out there. I maybe have thrown maybe three-fourths of a unit. I'm taking the better defense in the spot. This the trend of the number one seeds falling has been a really big trend, and we saw the 2 and 3 seeds for the same conference literally lose this yesterday. And South Dakota State, they had a little bit of a scare against Oral Roberts, but obviously they did get the win there. But I'm taking the better defense here. Obviously, it's a neutral court, so I'm just taking the better defense here. And obviously, the team that kind of has a lot, I guess, what less to play with because obviously South Dakota they have more to lose. And South St. Thomas, they're still transitioning, so not too much value. I'm just throwing maybe a little half unit, maybe three-fourths, just a little something that I saw, and just and that can continue for us today with all these number one seeds and these conference tournaments losing. So those are my two picks today with Cleveland State and Oakland, just a system play, and then just a little bit of value on St. Thomas, Minnesota, the money line at plus 130. Just a team that I saw that I think that can get it done, especially against St. Thomas team that is a little bit better offensively than South Dakota State. South Dakota State obviously a little bit shakier defensively. So those are my two picks today. But obviously, tomorrow and Wednesday, that's when the real fun happens with all day. We'll have some A10 and ACC tips off at 8:30 and 9:30 Pacific time. So it's gonna be super fun early days. But obviously we don't have much today. So those are my two picks. Ari, what have you cooked up for this Monday?
Just one play today for me. I'm rolling with the Norse of Northern Kentucky. Semifinal of the Horizon League facing Milwaukee. Both teams have been on fire as of late. Milwaukee's won their last 5. Northern Kentucky's won their last 4 of their 5, and their only loss was to Wright State by 6. Head-to-head, they split the head-to-head regular season, but Northern Kentucky was more dominant there when they won by 18 at home and only lost by 1 at Milwaukee. Obviously, this is a neutral court, like most of the games are, at this time of the year. I guess it's kind of similar with D running with the better defense. I mean, both defenses aren't good for either team, but it's way worse for Milwaukee. They're averaging almost giving up 80 points per game this season, versus 72 for Northern Kentucky, which is still not very good, but it's still better between the two. It should be, the total is 153.5, so it should be a pretty high scoring game. At least that's what it's projected to be. And I think that Northern Kentucky can get a few more stops that they need. It's a 1.5 point spread, so just taking them on the money line at minus 125 to advance to I think it's the semifinals to the championship of the Horizon League. So rolling with the North today.
Yeah, I think that's a good play. I was kind of looking at that game as well. I didn't really get a good read, but you kind of was you pretty much were reading the same thing I was. I mean, we talked about Milwaukee and their pretty suspect defense, but they kind of lean more on their offense. And in these neutral court games, it's kind of hard to lean on your offense when you have to carry on your defense, and that's kind of the one thing you always can rely on. So I kind of felt the taking the better defense is kind of be going to be the better system in terms of, these semifinals and kind of big system plays. And you talk about the Norse who have been in this spot many, many times before, especially, in the Horizon League. They've been a big familiar team in the championship and semifinals, making many appearances as of recent. So, taking them to win this, I think, is a good look at them for you as well. Taking them just straight up on the money line, -125. Like you said, it was a pretty close pick 'em game, and you're taking the better team here. Plus, excuse me, -125. I like that play for you as well. I was thinking about the over as well. Just in terms of how both of these offenses really produce, and we saw how in both of the last games, I think they put up over like 90 points each. But obviously, credit to the last game for Northern Kentucky because that game went into overtime. So that's the only kind of reason. So, but I do, excuse me, I do like the play for you. Just taking the Norse on the money line, -125 in their semifinal tonight against Milwaukee. Winner goes to the championship game. I like your play there, and obviously going back to my couple of plays today, just taking the Cleveland State Oakland, the other semifinal for the Horizon, just taking that under the system play that I told you about, and then the other semifinal in the Summit League, just throwing a little bit of money on there, just with St. Thomas. I just, like I said, just taking the better defense in this spot. We talk about how the number one seeds have been on treading on thin ice, especially in these mid majors. They're not like Kansas where they're kind of already guaranteed a spot because they get to play in the better conferences. Like these are their one shot, and it's tough for some of these teams like App State and Eastern Kentucky, who was the first to fall and whatnot. But I think the trend continues, and I think St. Thomas could have a good chance to win this game. So throw a little bit of money on there. You can find all these plays, obviously, on our Twitter, AKP Sports Talk, down below. That is our Twitter. You can find our full card and our video will be posted momentarily. But that's going to do it for this episode of AKP Sports Talk. That's Ari. I'm Korea. Obviously, we'll be back tomorrow, and we are going to be doing some good old college basketball. We have a full slate. We're going to be having, I believe, five conference championship games tomorrow. We're going to have the ACC kicking off, the A10 kicking off. I believe the Big 12 kicks off tomorrow. A lot of college basketball tomorrow as well. And obviously, Wednesday, our big time episode for MLB. And then obviously, just getting closer and closer to the reveal of March Madness bracket for this year. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. That's Ari. I'm Korea. We will see you guys tomorrow.